All right, I want to make sure that I respect your time for everybody to be able to uh, redeem this time and make it valuable for you. So what I want to go ahead and do is get started now, and then people as they join in will be able to do that. So. This is the Alteryx Designer webinar series, and today we are going to be talking about the environment overview. Now, my name is Robert, and I'll introduce myself more in a minute, but I am with with Data Meaning, and we are an Alteryx Premier Partner. So as Premier Partners, we provide a lot of solutions for Alteryx customers, including webinars, on-site training, as well as SOW work, project work to help people make the most of their investment with Alteryx. So today we're going to have some members of the data meeting are going to be available to answer questions through the Q&A setup that is available in the webinar. So there is a chat and there's a Q&A. If you have questions that you would like to ask, you can ask those in the Q&A, and those members of data meeting who are set up for this will go ahead and answer your questions during the seminar. And then at the end of the seminar, we will also have some time for some questions at the end if there are a couple minutes there. So without any further ado, I will get us started. I also wanted to let you know that we are recording the session today. And so if you have any questions, if you miss anything today, you can listen to the recording, watch the recording, and be able to get that information for later. So who am I? My name is Robert Frere, and I'm with the data meeting enablement team. And I've been in the IT business intelligence field for well over 20 years, and have been working with Alteryx extensively the last 2+ years of time. I have a background in database design, business intelligence tools. I do a lot of SQL-based development, as well as I enjoy teaching these types of classes and helping people learn the tools and get the most out of it. So if again, any questions you have at any point, go ahead and put them into the Q&A, and we will make sure that you have your answers. And also you will be getting an email after the meeting is over with some contact information from our team if you'd like more information about Alteryx and how you can gain and learn from the tool itself. All right, so this is the first in a series of 5 seminars that we're going to have. We're starting off with the introduction to Alteryx Designer. Later, we will be doing the blending of data sets, taking different data and combining it together in a business way so that we can do analysis from data from multiple sources. We're going to talk about cleansing our data sets. Most of the time when we get data into our system for analysis, we want to be able to take that data, clean up, get rid of null rows and columns, get the settings and formatting right so we can do our analysis. And so we're going to be talking about the different tools that Alteryx uses to do those steps. Then the fourth one, we're having pivoting data. via transform tools. So we're going to be looking at different ways to pivot your data, look at it in a different way, summarize it, and be able to find the analysis that you're really looking for, make the information that's available in your data pop out so you can see it. And finally, for our fifth seminar, we're going to be talking about establishing dynamic workflows. And really, that's one of the key things for Alteryx. Is the idea behind Alteryx is you want to take tasks that are manual right now. So right now, you get a spreadsheet in, and then you've got to go ahead and delete columns and rows and format things the way you want. And then you produce, you send that data to Power BI, and then you produce a visualization from that point. All of those things are a lot of manual steps, and a lot of us end up spending a lot of time doing those steps when we could be spending our time analyzing the data, enhancing the data, and making even better business decisions based on that. So what Alteryx wants to do is be able to free up your time. And so this last session that we will have is establishing dynamic workflows. What that does is it gives you some ways and patterns that you can use to be able to automate your workflow, so you don't have to go into the workflow every week or every day and tell it, okay, now look at this new data file, or now we've got a new month's worth of data, include that in here. That kind of things can be automated so that you're hands off with your workflows. They can run automatically and produce the data that frees you up to look deeper into your data. So here's our agenda for today. We're going to be, this is really an overview seminar. So we're going to be looking at the Alteryx interface. We want to be able to understand when you open up Alteryx Designer, where are you and what can you do with that tool? So that's the main thrust of today. We're also going to be looking at some individual tools within Alteryx Designer, and also being able to create a couple of very small but meaningful workflows so that you can see how your data can come into Alteryx, be manipulated, enhanced, and then output into the output of your choice. You can do all of that within the Alteryx Designer. Also want to talk about some additional resources for learning, because this seminar is going to be help with the overview, but also if you want to learn more about Alteryx Designer and you want to be able to get in there and start understanding how people put together workflows, there are some resources that you can get from the Alteryx community. We're going to talk about that. We're going to walk through a workflow, and then at the end of our time, going to have some time for question and answers if the clock doesn't beat us to 1 p.m. Eastern. All right, so let's get started with the Alteryx overview. So what is Alteryx? So Alteryx is both a data blending and preparation tool, as well as an analysis tool. And then also Alteryx allows you to produce data into other important environments. So we have as inputs, you can bring in Excel files, text files, CSV files, as well as if you have databases, you can connect to SQL Server or many other databases, pull in your data that way. Also, there are connection tools within Alteryx to allow you to connect to things like Salesforce and other web-based interfaces, so that you can take the data that you have from different locations and bring it into Alteryx, and you don't have to worry about converting your data into a different kind of a format that the database will understand, or making everything a text file so that you can bring it into Excel. You don't have to worry about the formats, because once you bring it into Alteryx Designer, that data will reside in memory and allow you to manipulate the data, prepare it, enhance it, etc. To your heart's content, and it doesn't care where that data came from initially. And that's really one of the key things I want to point out. And so another piece that this slide really shows us about is the enrichment section of Alteryx, because with Alteryx there are the ability to have a lot of what they call a data package, or a lot of data that it will help you get deeper insight into your own data that you're doing analysis in. So things like TomTom, there is data in here that will give you, you might say that you find some place that's 10 miles away from you. What this enhanced data will allow you to do is say, how long at a peak time will it take me to get those 10 miles from here to the location that I've set? So that kind of thing can be very valuable, because we know if we're in New York City, going 10 miles is going to be a lot longer than if we're in maybe the middle of the plains of Texas somewhere. So the TomTom data will give you that. The Dun and Bradstreet data will help you break down your data in business segments that you would be interested in, so that you can get more insight from the data that you already have. And finally, as I mentioned before, when we go to output the data, it doesn't have to go to just an Alteryx proprietary file or back to Excel. You can save your data, and a lot of times what people will do is they will do the analysis within Alteryx, and then they will connect to Tableau, Power BI, or one of the other top of the line BI tools, and then do your visualizations within those tools, and allow them to use their functionality to its greatest extent, while you've enhanced your data and manipulated it for that analysis within Alteryx. All right, so this is just real briefly, just to give you an overall idea of the environment, because there are a couple of main tools and main sections within the Alteryx environment. One is going to be the designer, and that's what we're talking about today. Going to highlight that. We've got the designer, and that is a standalone tool that you load on your notebook computer or your PC, and you can build your workflows, do your analysis, your manipulations, all within Designer. But that Designer is within a bigger environment, and the bigger environment is the server area. And in the server area, what it allow you to do is take that data that you have manipulated, those workflows, bring those workflows up into a server environment, which will allow you to schedule those times, use the power of a high-end Windows server box so that you don't have to keep your computer on to be able to run the workflows. It'll also allow you to share your information, your workflow, with others in your enterprise, and even those who do not have Alteryx installed can make use of the workflows and receive data files from the work that you create. They will be able to get there just having the URL of what's called the gallery. So via the web browser, they can access that information as well. All right, so I sort of talked about this, but what is the purpose of the Alteryx Designer? It's the end user tool, so it's used to create data analysis. We create workflows. That's what we're going to talk about, workflows. The data comes in, gets manipulated, goes out through a connected series of tools to do that information I just talked about. And also with Designer, it's the tool that we use to promote our workflows into the server environment. So when we've got a workflow that we know would be valuable for many people, we can promote that to our server environment, and have others access that that analysis that we've created. Also, again, one of the key things I think is you can create your workflows and then allow those who don't have Alteryx Designer, don't know how to create workflows themselves, they can still benefit from the work you've done by allowing them to self-serve the reports that they need. They can filter those reports and then they can get the information they need without having to come back to you for the get the answers that they're looking for. So that frees you up again to do more analysis, and it really is, the Alteryx Designer is really a self-service tool. It's designed for those who are doing the work to be able to create it on their own, not have to wait for an IT team to get back to you. You can make your changes, do your analysis, and do everything you need right up front. So what does a workflow look like? Well, we're gonna right here gives us an example of a workflow, and I'm gonna say right here I'm gonna go through a few more slides, and then we're actually gonna get into Alteryx Designer, because what I want to be able to do is show you the actual tool. But before I show you the tool, I want to give you an idea of what's going on. So this here, what we can see is we have a series of different shape and colored icons that are connected through these lines. And so what the way to think about it is that each of these tools is a process, so that your data is being processed by the individual tools, and then your data is flowing. In this case, from left to right, your data flows from tool to connected tool, and through the various phases of your workflow. And then at the end, as we see when we're writing out at the end, we can have a whole series of ways of interacting with our data, consuming that data, and perhaps using it as input for further workflows. So this is the idea behind Designer, and this is what we mean when we say a workflow. We've got tools, we connect them together, and each of the tools is step by step bringing our data into the format and with the enhancements that we desire for the business purpose that we have set up for that particular workflow. So again, here I'll take this last line: user productivity in hours and not days. Again, you can build your workflows, you can test them, you can troubleshoot, you can create things all within your own PC. And when you've built these, then you don't have to go back and rebuild them in the future. You can use those to analyze your data over and over again. All right, so what is the Alteryx Designer user interface? So this is where I'm going to go over a couple slides here, then we're going to get into Designer to look at it. So when we look at the Designer, there are a couple of different areas that I want to point out, and I've highlighted them here. In the upper left corner of the Alteryx Designer is the main menu. Then on the upper right is a search box, and this search box is I'll call it an enhanced search box because it does a lot of really neat things. And then the third section is the tool palette. So each of these tools that we see in this palette are those different processes that we use to have our data flow through and manipulate the data the way we want to. And then the configuration window, the canvas, and the result window we'll also cover in this section as well. So let's just, again, a quick overview here, then we'll jump into the tool and see it for ourselves. So we've got a main menu. You've got these different options here. The file is where when we're going to create a new workflow, open an existing workflow, or save our workflows. That's the kind of thing. If we've used Windows applications very much at all, these are very similar to things you would see in a normal Windows application. Edit's the same kind of thing. I won't go over that too much. In the view, the view allows you to choose which windows you want to interact with. Options will allow us to customize their settings for our Alteryx designers so that we have the ability to have the look and feel the way we want. And help, I'll call that an enhanced help, because not only does it send us to the actual documentation that is provided by Alteryx, but also Alteryx gives you the ability to download sample workflows and different analysis of the tools so that you can see the tools in action without having to learn everything from scratch yourself. All right, so the search window, we've got 3 sections that we're going to look at: the tools, the help area, and the community. So that I'll go into a little more detail in a minute. And also we were talking about the tool palette. One thing to notice here is that there are a lot of tools in Alteryx Designer. So they organize them in these different tabs. Each of what we call a palette is a different tab, and each of the tabs have what they've grouped together sort of like-minded tools, so that if you're looking to do a particular task, you can go to that particular palette or tab and find the tools that are closely related to each other. So that's the thing we're going to look at now. So with no further ado, what I want to do is I'm going to step out of PowerPoint here, and we're going to look in Alteryx Designer directly. All right, so here's Alteryx Designer. As I pointed out in the slides, at the upper left, we have our menu. We don't really need to go through too much of that anymore, except for I did want to show you the help section, because in the help section, besides the documentation help that Alteryx provides, it's also got some nice other sections. We've got tutorials, sample workflows. And so if you want to learn more about inputting you're bringing in your data into your workflows, you can go through one of these tutorials. You can connect to data. It will go ahead and introduce you to the topic and also give you some links into actual workflows that you can go from there. So that's this help that they have here, I think, is very valuable and also coincidentally very helpful. Now, the other thing I wanted to show you here at the top is this search box, because if we were to type in something that we're looking for, right there, it doesn't just bring up the help section for that particular tool, but also, as we can see, it's got the sections for tools. Now I put in the word input, and it automatically gives me a set of tools that have been tagged with input as that being the type of tool that they are. So one of the great things about this here is, since there are over 200 tools in the Alteryx universe of tools, it's sometimes hard to remember where each one is. But with this way, if you can type in this word, I can actually grab my tool from this section and bring it directly onto my canvas and drop it here, and then I can use it as part of my workflow. So that's one of the, I think, neat sections within the search window. I'm going to go ahead and close that down a little bit. Now the second part is the actual help sections. I'm not going to click on this, but you can click on different help sections that are related to the word input. And then the third one I think is pretty exciting, because you also have links here to the community. Now the Alteryx community, we're going to get into some more detail in a little bit, but it's a very active community, and a lot of people have written a lot of articles. There's a lot of teaching about the various tools that are available, and other people who have submitted questions about how to use a particular thing or error messages that they get. All of those are available in the community. So when you type in something like input, you can come down here to the community section, and you can see if any of these entries are something that you might be interested in that will help you learn about your particular question or issue that you're dealing with. So that's the search mechanism there. And the third thing we looked at in our slides was our tool palette. So just to point out a couple of things, if we click over here to the far left, this is the favorites tab. So what this does is this allows you to sort of organize tools that you use a lot in one place so that you for easy access to them. So in this case, you can get tools into your favorites. You can edit this and bring them in. And the way that you do that would be is if you can see the individual tool on the upper right, it has a yellow star in the upper right. Now, if I go to another one of my tabs or palettes, and I looked over here, and let's say I wanted to bring in my multi-field formula tool on as a favorite as well. If I hover over that tool, I can see to the upper right, there is an outline of a star. If I go ahead and move over here to this star and I click on it, then I can see it's filled in. Now, when I come back to my favorites tab, I can see that now my multi-field formula tool is now part of my favorites. So that's a good way of organizing again the tools you use most often. And it also, if you're new to Alteryx Designer, it also gives you a good idea of what tools are used most often. And so if you start learning a lot about these tools here in your favorites palette, it's going to help you to get a good foundation within Alteryx Designer. Another thing that I want to point out while we're looking at this is that if we select one of our tools, let's say our formula tool, now when I click on it once, up pops this box. And so it gives me a sentence definition of what this tool does, which is nice. But one of the things I really like about it too is it also has this thing called open example underneath it. Now, most of the tools have these examples, not all of them, but most of them. So in this case, on my formula tool, if I click here on open example, what it will do is it will then open up a workflow with detailed information about the different configuration options that are available for this tool. So, and this is a workflow that you can run this workflow. You can populate your data and you can say, okay, if I do this particular configuration in this tool, this is my result that I'm going to receive. And you can see if then else conditions, etc., all the way down. So this is a really good place to go to when you're trying to learn a tool, or if you think you already have a pretty good idea about how the tool works, but you're not getting the answers you're looking for. You can come to these pages and you can see what the different configuration options will allow you to do. So again, remember, to get here, we select a tool and click it once and then click on open example. So that's what that's a really an interesting part within Alteryx Designer, and giving, again, there's so much information that you can get in examples that it makes it a lot easier to learn how to use the tool. Then other than the favorites, if I think that if we start out on in and out, I'm not going to go through all of these, but I just want to point out something. The in and out palette, preparation palette, join, parse, transform, these palettes here are going to be almost all the tools that you're going to be using in your early development. So those are the ones to look at. Those are the ones to get familiar with. All right, now let me go back to our PowerPoint for a moment here, and I'm going to highlight the other windows that we're going to look at. Then we'll jump right back here into Designer so that we can see those windows again. All right. So there's also another window that I'll show you in a moment, which is the user interface tool. I'm sorry, user interface window. And this is mostly for when we are using our macros, but the main area where we actually build workflows is called the canvas. And that's the main area that we build the workflows do our analysis, and produce our output. So we're gonna go back and look at that here in a moment. The second one is the configuration window. Now, there are many tabs in here, but I'm going to focus mostly on the main tab, which is what we're going to be doing is when we look at the configuration window, whenever we put a tool on our canvas, we're going to get a unique configuration window, because this is where you're setting the process. This is where you are um, defining what that particular tool is going to do for your data to help you arrive at your use case solution that you want to arrive at. All right. And the third one is the result window. So in the result window, what we do is when we run a workflow, and as we're putting our data together, we want to be able to tell step by step what is our data look like at that particular point. And so by looking at the result window, we're going to be able to see our data step by step, and also find out if we had any warnings. Yeah, these tools will kick out warnings if particular criteria are met, and also we can see if we have an error. Maybe we've configured something wrong. We've left a formula half done, something of that nature. We will be able to find out that information by looking at the result window. All right, and so we're going to look at the result window. And then this is what I was talking about earlier. Sorry about that. This is the Interface Designer window, and this is what we use primarily with macros. And so I'll show you that as well. And so let's jump out of here and let's go back to Designer, and let's look at what we have here. So the the main part of our screen in our Alteryx Designer is this canvas. Now I have went ahead and built this very simple workflow just so that you can see how these things operate. So in this canvas, this is where we put our individual tools. Now I want you to notice that as I click on one of these tools, over here on the left in the configuration window, you see a series of options and windows to fill in. And this one in particular, since it's an input data tool, it gives us our data set as we're bringing it in, tells us what kind of file that we've opened up. All of that is configuration for the input data tool. Now, if I come over here to this formula tool and I click on it, you'll see that the configuration window now changes. This no longer has the information that it's relevant for an input data tool. Now it has information that is specific to creating formulas for use in our workflow. And then again, we've got output tools here as well. All right, now one of the things I want to do is if I want to run my workflow, you can do it a couple of ways. One of the ways you would do that is up on the upper right. You can hit the run workflow button, and it'll run the workflow. And again, as I was telling you before, the data will start on the left and it will flow to the right. Now that's how it works as default, and that's really the way that I usually use it. Though if you want, you could change the orientation of your workflows to start at the top and flow down to the bottom. Now, I also brought in these two tools here to demonstrate that the idea is you don't have to have only one single line of analysis, right? In this case, we branched off from our second tool here. We branched off to bring in a filter to filter our data here, and then also to create a formula over here. So now I've got two different lines of analysis. So that's important to know, because you're not limited to one input, you're not limited to one output, you're not limited to one set of analysis. You can branch off as many times as you need, or bring in additional data wherever you need in your workflow to handle your business process. So that's part of the flexibility that is available within the Alteryx Designer. Now to highlight the result window, I'm going to click on my browse tool over here. Now in my browse tool, when I click on that, there's a couple of things I want to point out. The first is the configuration window over here with the browse tool selected. The configuration window now gives us a data profile of particular columns. Now, right now it's looking at the customer ID column. But if I come over here to my city column and I click here, now you can see that now it's giving me information about the city values. I can see which cities are repeated most often in my data set. Now, another thing that's I like here about this particular tool is I can tell if I have any nulls in my data set. Now, this can be very important because if we're talking about customers and we're talking about their addresses, if we have a null for their city, that's going to be a significant hole in our data. So right here, I can tell that I do not have any nulls in my city column. So that's good. I have a city for each and every customer that I'm looking at. So that's kind of information that this data profile will show you. Now, focusing on the result window itself, there are a couple pieces I want to show you. Right now, we're looking at the data. You can see how this is in blue here. It says data. So this is the actual rows of data and columns of data that I have brought in and manipulated in my workflow. So that's my information. Now, if I wanted to look and see what are the data types of each of these columns here, I can come over here and click on metadata. And when I do that, I no longer see my actual rows, but what I see is each of the column names and then what type of data it is. So my customer ID right now is set to be an integer. My first name is a string. The last name is a string. That makes sense. Address is cities. Now this zip is an integer. You might want to change that to a string. So Alteryx has tools that allow you to do that. But right now you can get a good idea of what are the data types that you have within your data set. So that's one thing I wanted to show you. Another thing I want to show you is that you can also, when you're looking at this result window, if I hover over the city column, I'll see that there's these dots here on the right. If I click on the dots on the right, and I can see that there's a filter and a sorting capability. So you can filter or sort your data to be able to look at it and make sure that you've got what you want, or if you've seen values there that you don't like, you can see which rows have those values, that kind of thing. So this is a nice little thing to make this result window interactive for you. You can then take this data and you can copy it and put it into Excel or something else if you wanted to save your data. Another thing about the result window before we go on that I want to show you is if I click on, let's say, my formula tool and I run my data set here, now I've got an input anchor and an output anchor. So if I click on the input anchor and I look at my result window, what this is showing me is what my data looks like before this particular tool is processed. Then I can click on the output anchor down here, and now in this formula I added a couple of columns. So if I come over here to the far right, I can see that I added a full name column and a home value ratio column. Those are there after the tool, but before the tool was executed, those columns weren't there. So you can test your data column by column, row by row, and see when your before and after picture when each of the tools was done. So if I see my data after the tool and I don't like what happened, I know that it's in that particular tool that I need to go in and make changes to the configuration in order to get the output that I'm actually looking for. All right, so now let's go back to the PowerPoint here for a moment, and want to bring that back up. All right, so we were looking at that workflow and I pointed out a couple of things, but I want to just reiterate here that the how data is processed in a workflow. We start bringing in our data. So this tool is processed, then the data flows down the line to the next tool, it's executed, etc., down through to the end, and then we output our data, in this case into an Excel file. But again, you could export it into a database, you could send it to Tableau, you can do a lot of other things in that way. And the connections are done by connecting the anchor, the output anchor of one tool goes to the input anchor of a second tool. Now this slide just gives you an idea of various tools have various sets of anchors, right? So I'll just let you look at this. The one thing that's interesting is some tools, this is in particular is a union tool. This one allows you to put multiple inputs into this one union tool because it's going to bring them all together. Other tools, the default behavior is that only one connector can connect into the input anchors of these various tools. So when we talk about the tools, we have anchors, and then we connect the tools together from the output anchor of one to the input anchor of the next. All right, additional resources I wanted to talk to you about just briefly to show you the Alteryx community, because if you go to community.alteryx.com, you're going to see that there is a lot of information available. And I'm going to go ahead and step out of here and let us take us to the Alteryx community. And so if you type in community.alteryx.com, you can come in here and you can see there's a lot of information available. There are blogs, there are podcasts, there are everything you want to know. If you want to geek out about data analysis, you can do that all right in here. They've got these challenges which are very interesting, and I wanted to point out something here is one, if you sign in, if you can create a free account at the community, which will allow you, give you access to do things like you can come to the academy and go into interactive lessons. And now if you've signed in, you can go through these lessons, which are all 5 to 7, 8 minutes long. They'll walk you through how to use the tools. And also they'll give you a little quiz to make sure that you're absorbing the information. And so this is a great place to get more information and learn more about the tools. The weekly challenges are something that as you start getting established, you can, what they do is they put out different scenarios, different use cases, and they say, hey, here's the data, here's what you're trying to do, go ahead and solve this challenge. And so you can build it on your own, and other people are doing the same and posting their answers. So when you have taken your time and built something out, you can compare it to what other people have done and see how they use the tools available in Alteryx to generate the workflows. And you can learn a lot from seeing other people's solutions. Maybe they used a tool that you never used before. That kind of thing can all be done. So unlike the old days where you used to call an 800 number to get help when if you had a need in with Alteryx and their very vibrant community, come to these pages, ask questions, search for answers, do the training. There are people waiting for you to ask questions so that they can answer them. All kinds of things are available on the Alteryx community to help you grow in your knowledge of Alteryx. All right. So the last thing I want to do here in a couple of minutes is I want to take a look at a little bit more of a workflow. So this was a real simple workflow, but I wanted to bring in one more for us here, which is I'm going to zoom out a little bit. So the first thing I want to do in this workflow is I'm going to designate incoming data set. So what I've done here is I've used my data input tool. So if I come back up here to favorites, you can see that's it's one of the favorite tools, and in this case, I've brought in two CSV files. So I have customer data and I have customer transactions. Then when I brought in that data, I wanted to combine those data sets using a common key. So in this case, this data is related to this data by a common key. So I'm able to bring in this tool. I've got my first data set coming in here, my second, and then they are being joined together into one data set. And so that's what this tool does for me. Then this next tool over, I modify the data types for easier analysis, because when you open up a text file, it's going to make everything a string. But if you open other kinds of files, like a database file and other things like that, or database, sorry, connection, it will keep the data types that you have. And so if you need to, you can use the autofill tool to change your data types, because for our case, we want to be able to actually do arithmetic on numbers, so you don't want it to be defined as a string. Now, so I bring in that data, I combine it together, I modify our data sets. So if we're in here, I can filter my data, I can create formulas. In this case, I'm looking at product cost, I'm taking the sales, I'm subtracting away the profit from that, and that's going to be the actual cost. That product cost didn't exist in my brought in data, but I'm creating another column to use that information. So you can see that this is of a type double. So this is a numeric column. I'm bringing in that data, and then the summarize tool is something that I can take my data, and now if I look down in my result window, I can see that I have summarized my data by product category and subcategory. Now I'm looking at my profit and my product cost by these two categories. So these ones I brought in, and I put these all under the heading of extraction and transformation. So this here is really, if you think about it here, this is what our 5 seminars are going to be about. We're talking about the overview. Then next week, we're going to talk about the blending of the data, or the combining of the data in different ways. Then we're going to talk about the modifying the data sets to get the data we want. So that's a third section. Then we have the summarize or the transform tools, where we're going to pivot our data. So that's in the fourth. And I guess I don't have a dynamic analysis here. So that will be the fifth, but we don't have it shown here. So that's the first section of a Alteryx workflow. We're extracting the data, we're transforming it, we're manipulating the data as needed. Then the second piece I just wanted to show you is, we can enhance the data. So in this case, my data contains objects, mapping objects. So if I bring in my spatial data, my tool to make the spatial objects, you can see here when I've clicked on my browse tool that now what I have is my different customers have now been plotted out on maps. So this is, I can do some more analysis with my enhanced data this way. If I click on the next one over, I've taken those same customer dots, and now I have split out into area maps for the different cities that are there. So this is just a quick example of what it means to enhance our data. We brought in our data, we manipulated to the format we wanted, then we enhanced it. And finally, the output of the data. So in this case, I've created a report map. I've created a PDF document. Now, if I click on my PDF document and come up here to messages, oh, let me run this again. It wants to do, oh, because I have my, all right. So let me grab that real quick. All right. So what it can do then is it will run through here, and I've got three different outputs. And this is the last thing I'm going to cover is on the PDF side, I can click on my link and it'll open up a PDF of my map. So you can, if you were sending this out to somebody, it's created a map for you with your different points and your different areas. You can, I can also put in a tool to connect to Power BI. So it is now uploaded to my Power BI server. And also I've created an Alteryx file, and I just created this one so I could um, give you the idea that Alteryx has its own data set as well, and it's a nice place to store your data when you're going to go do further analysis on it. So backing up a little bit here, the idea behind this workflow is that we were able to take our data, bring it in, manipulate the data as we needed, enhance the data, and then output the data in various formats. So that's really the core of the Alteryx Designer, the workflows, how you put them together. And of course, there's a lot of information to know about each of these individual tools, but I hope that this has given you an overview of the Alteryx Designer. And then in subsequent webinars, we'll be able to get into more detail on the individual tools. So I know that I want to see if anybody has any questions that you want to ask here for the entire group, and we can go over those questions now. Now, one thing that I can say through this whole COVID-19 crisis is I've learned to how to do these webinars in a way that I know people are usually a little bit shy to ask questions in the big, um, to everyone together. But feel free to do so. We're all here to learn, and hopefully, I'm sure that any questions that you asked in our Q&A pattern have been dealt with by our expert enablement team. Can you show me again how to bring, so can you show me, question was asked, can you show me again how to bring the example YXMD format? All right. So are you asking how to produce a file? Or are you asking how to bring open the example workflows? So let me answer both questions. So if you come up here in the menu to help and you look at different tutorials, you can open up, let's say sample workflows is one. You can learn one tool at a time in and out. You can look at the browse tool and it will go ahead and it'll open up um, workflows for you. If you were talking about an individual tool and you wanted to see examples of it, if you click on it once, you can click on open example and it'll bring open workflows here. So that's another way of doing that. And if you meant how do we create a workflow, oops, sorry, too much clicking around. If you want to know how to create an output file that's a YXMD, what we can do is we can bring in an output data tool, connect it to our data flow, and then we can click on this, click on it that I want it just to be an Alteryx database file, and I can give it a name, and then I can, when I run my data set, it will then produce my file. If I click on message, it will then, I can open it up and see my output in a database file. All right. I hope that in one of those I covered your question. Thanks for the question. Anybody else? All right. Well, in the last couple minutes, I'll make a plug for our other webinar series that is going on, where Stephen Morgan is bringing Alteryx server information. So we're covering both ends, designer and server. So if you're interested in the Alteryx environment, or you have it and you want to make more use out of your environment or optimize what you're doing, that seminar series, as well as this one, will help you gain a good perspective on both designer and server. So when you receive your email after this webinar, you can ask for information about the server webinar as well, and get that information available to you. All right, anybody else? Okay, well, if there are no other questions, then thank you for your time, and good afternoon to you guys on the east, and good morning for you guys out in the west coast. And I hope that you're able to make it again for future webinars. I'll stop sharing, and thank you very much.